Alright, so in this video what I'm going to talk about is shoulder pain and rotator cuff irritation in the bench press. And just kind of going over some ideas as I kind of basically think out loud. And one of the issues with the shoulder, why people have issues with the shoulder when they bench press, is basically poor movement. The shoulder goes in, you have some rotation, you don't have full range of motion, you don't have good motor, don't have good motor control, you don't have full range of motion, or you're weak. The three different things. Some people have good motor control and they have good flexibility, but they're weak. So they pick a weight that's too heavy for them to control, and which causes them to have a poor position, which irritates the rotator cuff, and you get impingement or you get too much stress to the tissue. You're not tight enough in the shoulder. Lots of different variations and issues with that. But one thing I do want to talk about is that you got to imagine the arm and the shoulder as a bone that rotates inside the socket, in and out. This is kind of what the muscle. This is what the bone does, right? And there are tissues, there are muscles that do that. The rotator cuff. And kind of what happens is when the elbow goes behind the body, the humerus is rotating. It's rotating in and out. It's rotating in and out as your arm moves behind your body. So when I put my hand behind my back, my shoulder internally rotates and it goes into extension. If I put my hand above my head, it externally rotates and goes into flexion. So flexion, external rotation, internal rotation, and extension. So what happens for a lot of people, think about this for a second, is that when you go into flexion and external rotation, going above your head, some people are missing that range of motion. So what happens is a default, or as area of where you can go, is you, instead of going into flexion external rotation, you go to flexion internal rotation. This is where you kind of see the elbow bend. Basically, when you see someone press over their head, they're like this, right? But that's internal rotation. Or they put their hand out, their shoulder internally rotates. That's not the way the shoulder is designed to move. But then, you know what's interesting? This is debatable. People will talk about debates about like whether that you can have internal rotation at the top of the shoulder. But I'm talking about just for normal function, not for high-level Olympic lifting. And then going behind the back, going into internal rotation and extension. And sometimes what happens if you don't have good internal rotation in the shoulder, the scapula and this whole shoulder girdle has to dump forward, which puts the shoulder in a bad position. Now this is not the best position to be in, but if I don't have a load, I can tolerate this. This is not going to kill me. But imagine if I do have a load. So in this instance, look at the same shoulder position. Let's move my arm. Sometimes when someone goes on the bottom of the bench press, this is sort of what they look like. The shoulder is dumped forward instead of being in this position here. Now you can see how I pull my shoulder down like this as I internally rotate my shoulder and dump my shoulder forward in this bad position, right? And I have my fist here. Like just imagine I have a bench press bar. And then I pull back like this, you can kind of see how this moves. Now, there's actually a possibility where I keep the bar here, right? I'm holding my fist here, and then I pull my shoulder down. This is really what you want, right? But what happens is because you don't have the good shoulder mobility, you'll move somewhere here, which is what causes issues in the wrist and the elbow. So, let's go take a look at a second here as I kind of talk this stuff out. Barbell bench press, right? And going on my back, holding a barbell, squeezing my glutes, going in a good shoulder position. I have my lats slightly activated, my shoulder blades retracted, and pulling the bar into my chest, right, or below my chest maybe. So you can see how my elbows are behind my body. Now, one of the things to consider when it comes to having good shoulder mobility, why people have issues that they'll get into this position here, and they'll lose tightness in the shoulder, and they'll shrug forward. Now with this amount of weight on the bar, it sort of doesn't matter, but let's take the bar off my chest for a moment and be like this. Think about the stress on the shoulder here. There's internal rotation in the shoulder, there's load on the bar. Let's just imagine there's 225 pounds. If I'm here and I'm weak, what will happen is I'm going to end up losing control and I'm going to drop the bar on my chest, or I'm not going to not be able to get up, I'm going to need a spot, I'm going to get stuck. I'm going to get pinned underneath the bar. So when you're in this position here, what you really want is you want to be able to get your shoulders back and down and get good external rotation, and you want to feel like you're bending the bar so that when you get down to your chest, you have a good shoulder leverage position, and then you push forward and you can keep your good shoulder position. For a lot of people, what will happen when they fatigue, or maybe they're tired, or they're not paying attention, they lose tightness in the back, they get down to the chest, their shoulders dump forward like I said earlier. There's a lot of technique errors when it comes to the bench press. And what you want to make sure of when it comes to just basic bench pressing, just for building strength and muscle, not for powerlifting, is you're going to want to be able to make sure that when you bring the bar towards your chest into full range of motion, that you have a good shoulder position with good external rotation. This is the reason. There's a reason why you don't want your elbows to be flared out like this. Like if I were to flare out my elbows, I'll bring the bar towards my neck. This will have a high risk of shoulder impingement because of the way the scapula and the shoulder is positioned. Because you can pinch the supraspinatus here. Really, what you want to be is you want to be able to externally rotate and squeeze your shoulder blades together, and bring the bar lower, right here, because this will allow for better shoulder position and actually better chest activation. I guess people will argue this because actually, if you come out wider, you can get more chest stretch, more chest activation, but the sacrifice with a very bad risk-benefit ratio, though.